Hello everyone, welcome to session 5. We're going to have a lot of fun because we're going to do that beautiful, soft, wet and wet background. We're going to get the background all wet with clear water, and then we're going to drop in some tea consistency, some milk consistency, but also some cream consistency paint, which is one of my favorite things to do. It's so beautiful and I can't wait to get started. So let's go. Now what we need to do you see how soft? It almost looks like watercolor painting behind this deer. It's all soft and out of focus. And so we certainly want ours to look the same. So I'm going to use my 3/4 oval, clean out all that extra beautiful paint. And I'm going to get everything wet. And I'm cleaning my brush out pretty well, but there's still a little green in my brush. That's okay. And maybe it'll help you guys see what I'm doing too. So right now it's puddling, and that's okay, but what I'll do is I'll spread it around a lot to even it out. And I'm going to get my little rigger to make little hair textures up against . I'm going to use the side of my brush to try to salvage some fur textures. And I think I masked some in, but just to be sure, I'd love to get these little hairs. I think those are special and quite precious, and I'd like to save them. So I'm putting puddles of water so that I can really work on those edges, but keep everything wet. Now I used a lot of masking through here. So I know I don't have to worry about it quite as much. I'm using the side of my brush to try to get uneven edges where the fur goes. And then carefully looking over here to make sure I'm not covering up anything important. Getting a drip and then spreading it around. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to clean my brush out and just kind of go around and just sop up any puddles I have. I don't want puddles really. And wring out my brush and then sop up some more puddles. Just make sure you can see that it even made a hard edge even though I used very light tea consistency over there. So that is definitely a real thing that happens. And then I'm going to switch back to my size 8 round, and I'm just going to block in some stuff with very thick I'm going to use pure green right now, and I'll dull it down later if I think, well, maybe just a little bit of, I picked up a little bit of junk off my palette. And that is very strong. And then I'm going to clean out my brush a little bit, blot it, get some permanent green light, make it watery, make it even watery. I don't mind if there's some cauliflower effects here. I'm gonna let that kind of merge together. It is a little bit of a risk because this is a warm green, and warm colors like yellow come forward, but we're painting a background which needs to recede. And then this quickly goes to a field look with some brown color, and I'll get that in, and I'm letting the cauliflowers happen. Adding in a little more red, a little bit of grayed down red, just junk off my palette, that's just so pretty. Going in with some grayed down greens around the whiskers here. I don't want to be too bright. By the way, here around the whiskers, I wish I would have made it even a little bit darker to make them pop more, and a little bit darker around this side of the face in hindsight. So maybe y'all can paint this a little bit darker than what I'm doing. And then some drops of cream consistency permanent green light. But yeah, that's pretty. And look at these beautiful cauliflowers that are happening. Just really pretty. Then I'm going to go in with a little bit more pure cream consistency, blue here and there. Do a landscape soft abstract thing. And I think this is entering the buckling stage, so this is a good time to get your brush with some drips and just go tap, 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 and just put like maybe 10 drips into that buckling painting, and it'll create some really atmospheric effects as everything dries, hopefully, if you're lucky. So, all right, we're gonna let all that dry. I wanna make a note. This is really starting to buckle. Look how much I can push it down. This is when you can really play with your push effects. So I'm just gonna dip the very tip of my brush into my water so it doesn't have a lot of water, and I'm gonna touch it to my paper just like that, and the water will explode out. So I'm going to accentuate some of these cauliflower effects that are already happening along this edge. And to me, it makes it look like maybe it's the edge of a field or something, and back here are some woods, who knows? But this is a bit more of a straight line that I like. I'm gonna try to put a little drip right in the middle of that to break that up. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe right here. And just wherever I see a cauliflower happening that I like, I will accentuate it by adding more water. Look how this is doing. Oh, that's just so pretty. So that's something you can do during the buckling stage when you have this kind of background that's really soft. Also, let's see if we can get this edge a little bit better. Let's get some real furry. And I just squeezed out the water out of my brush. So I'm trying to make this a little bit more. Close to what I want it to look like. Using kind of a dry wrung out brush here because I don't want a cauliflower here. I just want to perfect this edge. So that looks better. That also needs to happen here. So I'm going to get some kind of watery and clean out my brush, but work on this. Get some real small, tiny little detail here as if I can while this is all wet. All right, now we'll let it dry. And so what we could do right now is work on building up this fur. Now that I have this background in, I can see that this is all going to be needing to be a lot darker. So I'll take my silver black velvet 3/4 favorite. These are my favorite brushes by Silver Black Velvet. And I'm just going to add, this is what we call a glaze. So this area is completely dry and I want to darken it. So first I get it wet with clear water like this. And I leave the areas that I want to keep completely white. I keep those areas completely dry. So all this white area will be completely dry. And then you can do what they call in the watercolor world a glaze. So after I get this all wet, I'll take my size 8 round by Silver Black Velvet, and I'm going to get some burnt sienna, and then we're going to darken, let's darken this. So that kind of defines his muzzle, that little area. And I'm going to soften that edge with a clear water brush. Kind of keep it really soft there. See, so that defines his muzzle even more than what it is in the reference photo, which is a good thing. It makes more sense to the viewer. So I'm just adding another layer of color to get this one shade or two darker. I'm gonna put in this little area. Get some cream consistency paint on my brush and drop it in there. Now I'm working on dry paper so it gets more texture. That kind of adds some nice texture, so I'm going to go with that. Then you can kind of scrub at the edges with your finger there and just, that looks nice. This, I see some pure red in the reference photo, so I'm going to put that in. Just on dry paper. Give her a little lipstick. How about that? Clean out my brush completely. Dry it off on my towel. Then just dip the tip in. Get the extra drop out and then touch this edge to soften it. That's pretty. Now I painted over the eyelid here. There's another little trick you can use is a scrubber. So I'm going to use a scrubber to lift out this eyelid area. It's quite light actually. And define that. There. All right.
All right, thank you guys so much for joining me for session 5. And in session 6, we'll do some more dry on dry to continue to build up the complexity of the fur and continue to add glazes of fur texture on top of the underlying layers to continue to build the realism in the fur of this fawn. So I'll see you then.